huge shout outs to everyone at Idaho Out of School Network. Excited to partner with you both. And then Diana, I'm really excited to be here today, and we'll be focusing a little bit more on how to really promote youth voice, leadership, and engagement all across the different communities that you're working with. And I'll specifically alter this a little bit to kind of meet the remote needs as well, and kind of the quick pivots that we've been making for the coronavirus precautions, and some things at Girls Who Code that we're doing to really support you all as well. So to kick us off and get started, I wanted to give you a quick sense of an overall agenda for what we'll be covering today in the next about hour. So first we'll do a quick welcome and get to know each other a little bit, which I think is always helpful for the lens of what we're talking about today. I'll quickly talk about the importance of gender equity in STEM and kind of how the lens at Girls Who Code really touches upon other important aspects of our identities, as well as we really try to foster an inclusive environment, which feeds into this idea of youth voice, engagement, and leadership. I'll then talk more about creating holistic STEM programming. So what other types of things can you really implement to make this happen? And then how to access other free resources from myself, from Girls Who Code, as well as other things that you can get in touch with. And there I'll highlight some other work that we've been doing in Idaho, specifically to make that happen. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end, but as we mentioned, feel free to go off mute, pop into the chat, whatever you prefer, and then we can answer questions all throughout too to make it really conversational. So before we begin, I'd love to give you a sense of my own journey and experience that has shaped who I have become, which is important really as you also bring in your own experiences to the programs that you lead, and then would love to hear from each of you. So quick sense of kind of who I am. I grew up in New York State on Long Island. So that's where I currently am in New York City, but do quite a bit of traveling all throughout the country for Girls Who Code. And so I grew up really close. There's a picture of me and my two sisters. I have an older sister and a younger sister that I'm really close to. And that's always really been influencing my idea of community and sisterhood and really supporting each other. I had a really strong family, and a couple blocks down were like all of my cousins all lined up. And so we were really close and formed big connections together. And so I also really wanted to focus on, diversity and how really to bring in different ideas. And so that's what brought me over to New York University, where I had studied metropolitan studies and been really involved in a variety of different service activities, like with Breakaway, doing alternative breaks programs as well. And I had also been involved with United Way of New York City, involved in Department of Strengthening Nonprofits, Great Oaks Charter Schools for a bit as well. I've also been volunteering at an organization called Project Renewal, which works with homeless New Yorkers for the past about 5-6 years now. So I've been really excited to kind of take all this theme of service and identity and community and bringing it to my master's program at NYU Wagner, which is the Graduate School of Public Service, for my master's in public administration and nonprofit management. I had also been involved with Go Project, which is a very small local nonprofit that focused specifically on special education, which is very near and dear to my heart. And so I've always really focused on equity, special education, and serving underserved communities to really make sure they have the support both academically, social, emotionally, and family engagement wise as well, to really support folks. And so very family oriented, very service oriented. I have a picture here too of my niece and nephew, who are like the loves of my life. They're adorable. And so that really also brings in my, love for education and passion for really youth development. And that's what brought me to Girls Who Code. So that's why I'm here now, really focusing specifically on this Department of Community Partnerships and Outreach. And so that's the work that I do. And so excuse me, it's not corona. I love to work with different communities all across, like the Idaho Out of School Network, the Hawaii State Department of Education, different like Girl Scout troops as well across the country. There's quite a number of people that we work with. So I love to make connections and really support each other as we build community together. And so that's a little bit about me and kind of what I'm going into today, and talking about fostering equity, inclusion, youth voice, and engagement and leadership in across all the different programs that you're running. So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit more about it today. So before I move on, maybe for the sake of time in terms of the chat, if you don't mind typing into the chat just your name, maybe what like school organization you're working with, and yeah, that would be great. So if you could type that into the chat just so we could see kind of where you're coming from and what you do. I would love to hear more about kind of like what students you're working with, which would be helpful. And then today I'll talk a little bit more about the different pieces that I mentioned. Great. Anna, great. Perfect. Perfect. And as folks continue to type in, I'll talk a little bit more about Girls Who Code as well. So I'm glad that we're all here. And once again, feel free to go off mute and introduce yourselves as well all throughout. But to give you a sense, before we dive into different tangible activities that you could bring right back to your community, I wanted to introduce a little bit more about who we are and what we do, to give you a context for our equity lens as well. And so at Girls Who Code, we really are the international nonprofit seeking to address the gender gap in technology. And so our mission is to promote gender equity and parity in the computing and technology sectors, and really do that by inspiring, educating, and equipping girls with the skills that they need to thrive. Right, so we really imagine a world where our computer science classrooms are as diverse as our communities, a world where women in computing have a sisterhood and community to lean on, and a world where sisterhood can create real change for communities everywhere. So we could only really do that with all of your support, and so wanted to focus on overall STEM as well as computer science and how we specifically promote youth voice through the work that we do. Great, and I see people chatting on in. Welcome everybody, same mix of folks. We have Teresa, Maggie, Mallory coming from different after school programming, of course. So really excited to have you here today. So before we dive into the activities once again, I wanted to give you a sense of the importance of gender equity in STEM. Before we do that, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about what computer science is, since that is our focus in terms of curriculum, right? So computer science, in a dictionary sense, is the study of computers and algorithmic processes, including their principles, hardwares, etc. But simply put, really, coding and computer science is just a way we communicate with computers to tell computers what to do. So we think that computer science is a really great way to teach students valuable life skills, where coding is kind of an endless process of trial and error, really trying to get the right code in the right place. But one comma or one semicolon can really mean the difference between working code or failure. And so we want students to learn this resilience, learn about this imperfection. And as they tinker with these challenges, they learn that it's okay to make mistakes and to embrace them as learning opportunities, which really helps them be brave and resilient as they continue to be leaders in the future. And so with this in mind, we want to think about how technology really continues to shape the way that we live, right? So STEM education has become more and more important for our young people, where coding skills in particular have become one of the most sought after skills in the US economy today. And today alone, there's over 500,000 open computing jobs in the US, but there's actually only 40,000 computer science graduates each year. So it's a huge financial opportunity, and there's a need to make that happen. In addition to the growth of these opportunities, why else is computer science education important? So first of all, 58% of all new STEM jobs are in computing. And the average salary of a computer scientist is also $100,000, which is a huge opportunity here, especially for students of underrepresented backgrounds to access more financial freedom and have a greater socioeconomic mobility in this career. Plus, jobs aren't only in the tech booms of Silicon Valley, right, what we might perceive, but actually 91% of these lucrative jobs are located in places all across the country. So there's definitely opportunities everywhere, including all around Idaho, right? You can use these skills in a variety of different fields too, because 67% of these jobs are in non-tech fields like medicine, agriculture, entertainment, manufacturing, finance and banking. The list goes on and on. So there's so much opportunity for young people to really use these skills as economic movements in a variety of fields that they're passionate about in locations all across the country. So just like you see here, when we give our young people computing skills, they can unlock this financial opportunity and live anywhere or do anything that they're passionate about. But unfortunately, not everyone's been included in this opportunity, right? And so the problem is that the gender gap is actually widening. So in 1995, 37% of tech jobs were held by women, but today only 23 or 24% are women. And this is staggering. So especially as we think about an even bigger gap of female representation in leadership positions within those tech companies, right? It's even wider. So we need to have more diverse representation of people in the door to, one, provide them with more opportunity on an individual level, but also to make sure that they have innovative contributions to society through teams with diverse perspectives. So in order to address this, we need to start earlier, right? Where women are drastically underrepresented in educational pathways as well.
Hey, Emily,
Yes.
do they know, is there a good reason why the number, I mean, this seems like almost counter, like why is it declining in women?
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I think it's for a couple of different reasons. I think it's one, how we kind of socialize our young people. I think that is really important in how our young people, our girls and our boys and students of any gender perceive what they can do in the future, which plays a big impact, right? What are the normal toys that we're tend to be giving our girls and our boys? What are, the things that we're saying to our students as well? So that plays a big part of it, and I'll touch upon that a little bit as well too. But that's a really big sense of it, as well as some other parts of the drop off too. Are they encouraged to go into the STEM classrooms? Do they have their friends in their STEM classrooms, which might also affect the way that they're going into it? So there's a variety of different reasons, and we can only really address it all together as we think about these different pieces. So in terms of the educational pathways too, right, there's only 19% of students who receive degrees in computing who are women, and only 2% across the country who are women of color who are receiving computing degrees. So there's big drop-offs, not only in middle school and high school, which tends to be the biggest interest cliff, but also in college and career, which is really where they could get the most economic opportunity. In computer science in Idaho, and thank you for, I don't know if it was Anna or for Diana, but in Idaho, there are a lot of STEM jobs in outdoor fields like fish and game and forestry. Oops, sorry, hit back a couple times. There we go. So in Idaho, there's a lot of different jobs right now. This is all facts from code.org in 2017. Right, so there's 1,021 open computing jobs in Idaho in 2017. There was only 435 graduates in computer science in Idaho in this time, and only 16% of those are female. And so how can we really get more students involved in this? Because there is a lot of opportunity in Idaho, and all places all across the country. So if they're going to fish and game, forestry, a variety of other different companies as well, it's important for them to get those skills across the board. And so the pipeline is worsening for a couple of different reasons, right? And so I touched upon the socialization piece a little bit. And so oftentimes, right, we teach our boys to, aim high and take risks, but we're often teaching our girls to be overly cautious, where girls tend to be socialized to avoid failure and risk as they aspire towards perfection, which can hurt them when it comes to exploring new interests like coding. So we want to make sure we're teaching all students at a young age, to build the confidence, skills, and engagement that they need to persist in the field. That's why this idea of youth voice, leadership, engagement is so important. And according to our research with Accenture, 69% of the growth in computing pipeline for gender equity could come from changing the path of their youngest girls. So especially those in junior high school, where we see that drop off. And so in the figure on the slide deck shows the experience of computing in their junior high years means that girls would be 18% more likely to show interest in computing through high school and college. But we have to also not only engage them at a young age, we also have to sustain that in high school and beyond, to avoid that high school trap where maybe previous gains for those girls' interest in computing at a young age might be lost in high school due to a range of negative factors that might impact this stage of their education. Right? If there's no friends studying computing, it's not as enjoyable that they find, right? It's not maybe as engaging for them because they don't find it real world relevant or see their impact in it. Or maybe computing wasn't taught at the time. And so we want to address these issues in a few different ways, but we really need to build a pipeline of brave girls and students all across the board that are inspired, educated, and equipped for these lucrative opportunities. So we can do this by creating a full community, by building in more equitable practices as well, right? So we don't want to just positively impact the gender gap in tech, but also for all of our young people that are historically underrepresented groups in our STEM industries. And we can do this by a few different reasons. One, we want to be positive role models and mentors for our young people. We want to create positive and inclusive and brave community spaces for learning where they can feel confident to ask questions and push forward. We want to provide diverse representation of role models in our curriculum. And I'll touch upon one of our Idaho clubs in uh, the Donnelly Public Library, which really does this well, and I'll touch upon that later. And we also want to make connections to holistic programming to build essential life skills like bravery, resilience, collaboration, and make connections between curriculum, their real world experience, which is really that key for engagement, and their ability to positively impact their community, which really feeds into their ability to be leaders in their community as well. And so Girls Who Code's been already doing this work in a few different ways. We really want to encourage girls to see themselves as computer science as part of their future and drive that movement. So we've already launched over 10,000 clubs in all 50 states and the US territories. We've reached about 185,000 girls to date since our founding in 2012, which is really recent, but it's because of this hunger in the community. And we've also expanded to Canada, the UK, and India. So we're excited about that and really proud too that 50% of our alumni are coming from historically underrepresented groups, and that 30% are of our 30,000 of our college age alumni are choosing to major in computer science and related fields at 15 times the national average, and our Black and Latina alumni at 16 times the national average. So we're really excited about this. And we do this mainly through our clubs program. The Idaho Out of School Network, we're really excited that they are a clubs community partner. Shout out to you again, can't shout you out enough. So we're excited to bring this and spread awareness about our free resources and completely free programming with everybody. And we'll continue to partner into the upcoming years. That way we can really focus on supporting you all as much as possible. And we're doing that through our main program, which is our Girls Who Code Clubs program. The meat of our clubs program is our middle and high school clubs, which are 6th to 12th grade girls. We also have 3rd to 5th grade programming, which is more of a book club type model, but today I'll focus a little bit more on 6th to 12th, and a lot of the themes kind of feature into the elementary school as well. And so for our 6th to 12th grade programming, these are completely free, and they're a way for girls to join our sisterhood of supportive peers and role models and use computer science to change the world. And we provide you all with completely all of the curriculum, lesson plans, ongoing support. We actually even give you money through our mini grants of $300 per semester to help you promote equity in your community. All completely for free, which is always the best price. Plus, anyone can start and lead a club, so including teachers, librarians, parents, community leaders, and more. So regardless of your experience with computer science, once again, we are here to help. So no need to have that experience, since a lot of our materials are comprehensive, and we want you to really live and breathe that idea of being a role model as a lifelong learner. So, you can get this comprehensive resources and support and then learn alongside your girls as well. And so these clubs are at the core of our movement, and many of the activities and tips today are pulled right from our curriculum, so you can even go back and use it right away. I will note as well that boys and students of any gender are welcome to join the clubs as well. So while we do promote a girl supportive environment across the board, and so you'll see kind of Girls Who Code, the logos and everything across our curriculum, we do have quite a few boys who join clubs, especially in rural areas where you want to have that access for all. So access is very important for us as well. So to give you a quick sense of how our club program works, so you can model that structure for your own community, I'll first walk you through what a club looks like as a sample. So typically every club starts off with a sisterhood activity. So it features icebreakers, energizers to help you build a sense of community amongst your girls. Then for about 5 to 10 minutes, girls learn about inspiring and relatable role models in the industry. There are Women in Tech spotlights. Then for about 40 or more minutes, girls dive deeper into our user-friendly self-guided coding tutorials featuring a variety of programming languages like Scratch, Python, JavaScript, Thunkable, or a new set of tutorials using Swift that we've developed in partnership with Apple, which you can use iPads for. So as they begin to build their skills through the club experience, they'll also work in teams to help them build a culminating Girls Who Code project, which is one of my favorites. And it's their culminating project to use their new skills to build a project that they care about by addressing a real world problem in their community. Lastly, each meeting ends with a stand-up. So club members develop a growth mindset by reflecting and sharing their work thus far, receiving feedback, and asking questions. So now that you know kind of the general sense, I'd like to move into our recommendations for how to foster really that youth voice, leadership, and engagement into your STEM programming as well. So the first piece, and really, doing any of these pieces, you need to have a strong leader, and that really starts with you. And so according to our research, junior high school students with an inspiring teacher have led to an 18% increase of girls' interest in computing. So as you can see here, this also impacts their high school experiences, right? Where 73% of girls who had a more inspiring teacher are more likely to go into computing or coding. And so this is really important, right? So fostering inclusion really begins with you to bring out that inspiration. So as you're thinking about your own middle or high school experience, really think and reflect upon your own role models that you looked up to and the qualities that they had. Maybe it was a teacher who showed that they cared, an older cousin who would check in on you, a neighbor who had always had your back. So how can you emulate those similar characteristics to show students that you care in a genuine and inclusive and authentic way? So in our clubs program, we recommend that our facilitators use these guidelines for strong facilitation. So I'll go over these general recommendations as a higher level before we dive into each. So first, I want to make sure that you're modeling what you want to instill in your students. So, make sure to use positive, inclusive, and strengths-based language and behavior. You also want to make sure you're modeling this behavior across all your young learners, right? So as humans, we naturally are socialized to form our own biases and perspectives as we get older, right? We're not supposed to have a favorite, but biases come into play. So how can you really check that at the door to be those role models and actively work to respect and treat all learners equally, regardless of sex, race, religion, sexual identity, disability, or any other protected classification? It's also important for your students to learn the basics of our STEM curriculum. However, we also want them to leave a strong and meaningful peer group and the strengths they need to continue studying STEM. That's really the key for engagement and the key to get buy-in so they can become leaders. So don't underestimate the importance of including group building activities to make time for students to reflect, play, and grow together, because that work is just as important as the things that they might create or the programs that they might write. We also encourage you to be a part of the community, right? So participate in the different activities, right? Especially the icebreakers, to help the students see that you're their mentor and an active member of their community. We've also found that one of the trickiest things about running a club is that helping girls to reflect honestly about their progress. Sometimes they can hinder their growth. That can make them feel like they don't have a voice because they're afraid to share. And so, you really want to make sure that they're able to admit that they need help. Other times, friendships can be complicated, and that can make it hard for them to give a friend critical feedback, right? For that peer-to-peer feedback. So pay special attention to these moments in your own programs and encourage your students to speak their minds respectfully. That way they can have that voice, they can be that leader in that space to always get feedback from each other. And that'll help them so much when they move into their college and career. When building your program, you also want to become that role model for your students, but you should also make time to showcase a diverse representation of role models. That way, your students can also see themselves reflected in that computer scientist, mathematician, or scientist that they want to become. As we think about modeling the language and behavior that we want to see in our students, we must first fully understand the growth mindset perspectives. So I'm sure you've seen this in your experience, right? Students, especially girls and students of color, can often be socialized to default to a fixed mindset where they think, oh, I'm not good at math, or I can't do it, or they begin to see mistakes as failures that they should avoid. But this mindset can become incredibly static and really hinder their ability to succeed. So for example, many of our club facilitators have a similar story, right? Maybe the student calls over the facilitator and they say, I don't know how to code, or I don't know what to write. And the teacher might see a blank text editor on the screen and then might think, oh, well, what did they do for the past 20 minutes? They didn't do anything. But if they press undo a few times, they'll see that they wrote code, then deleted it, wrote it, deleted it. So maybe the student tried, they came close, but they didn't exactly get it right. And instead of showing the progress that they made, the student would rather show nothing at all, right? So perfection or bust, and mistakes are not an option. But it's our job as educators and role models to transform this thinking into a more positive and solutions-oriented outlook. So that way they can feel really engaged and feel that you're invested, as well as themselves being invested in their own education. So when we encourage our students to have this growth mindset, they can begin to see challenges and mistakes as learning opportunities. They'll be more likely to take risks, try new things, and be hungry to improve over time. And so you can encourage this growth mindset by building in a strengths-based approach into your language. So when a learner approaches a challenge, it's important to help them embrace that challenge, acknowledge what they're working on might be hard, help them break it down step by step so they can calmly approach a solution, and then help them lean into the discomfort by celebrating their mistakes as learning opportunities, or find ways to use their strengths in creative ways to address these challenges. So for example, our founder, Reshma Sarjani, really focuses on the idea of being brave, not perfect. And so every Friday, she has Failure Fridays on her Instagram and across the board. And she celebrates something that she failed at that week, right? Because we all make mistakes. We all do that. But how can we celebrate and learn from it? And so one of our clubs does Failure Fridays as well. And so every Friday they say, oh, this week, this part of our project was really hard. I failed in this way. And they celebrate it. They all clap their hands at the end of someone sharing. So it's a way to change that mindset.
My dad used to work for Micron, and
Mm.
he would assign a blame person of the week.
Oh,
and they would
that's
get
so
a
funny.
trophy, and they would be like, whatever happens, it's this person's fault. And then they would, so that you felt better about making mistakes, because then it was like, well, not my fault. So, and
Got
people
a
would like
trophy.
line up to be the mistake person that week. Like everyone, it just kind of
Oh,
relieved a lot of stress about making
yeah.
mistakes and being okay to fail. And
That's
that
so
was like years
funny.
ago, but it was, he was like, nope, it's not your fault. We're fine. We'll just move on. And
Right.
so, and that's at
So
Micron, which is a multi-billion-dollar company. So
yeah, so many big companies are doing that now. I mean, often like what Google, like they like ring a gong, so
yeah,
there's lots of
mistake.
different things.
Yeah,
Exactly, yeah, because I think it is good to normalize it and make it not as scary, because otherwise, if they're scared to make a mistake, they're not gonna ask you for help. They're not
right.
gonna ask their future employer for help, and then what happens? They're gonna be blindsided, maybe get fired like without even knowing.
Right.
So um, it's always good to do that. And you could do this in a couple of different ways too. I mean, I think one of the pieces here too is promoting that non-judgmental framing too. So as you're also doing this, try to not, judge people to both out loud and then in your own head. Because sometimes when you begin to see a student as a quote unquote like a poor learner, or maybe like they're not a real coder or like a problem child, right? Then you start to treat them intentionally or unintentionally as such. And so when you do that, try to catch yourself and remain respectful and equitable amongst all your learners, no matter what's going on in your head or out loud. Never place blame as a student. When you're practicing personal responsibility with your vocabulary, you can do that as well. Rather than even saying, oh, it's because she's so smart, or oh, because they have such raw talent. Maybe it's saying, okay, well, oh, it's because they persevere when they face a challenge. They were brave for asking a question about the project. So it's more about the effort going into it versus, oh, this person is naturally smart. It's like, how do they work hard to get there?
And I would include not judging yourself and putting yourself
Yes.
down as an instructor, because that leads them to feel like they should be putting themselves down. Because if you're like,
Mhm.
I'm the worst at this, then that's not
Right.
helpful.
Exactly. Because then if you're saying like, oh, well, I'm not a coder, but you'll all be great. Instead of being like, I'm not a coder yet, or like, I don't know how to code yet. I think the yet or like yes and is always helpful rather than that. And so you can also really try to focus, as I mentioned, on their effort and bravery, and think about the way that you're adjusting your language and really know your own strengths. So just as I mentioned, thinking about, your own strengths, how to ask for help, right? We're all human. We have flaws, we make mistakes. And so find what your best qualities are and then find others to help complement that. So in all of our Girls Who Code clubs, each club is designated what's called a club success specialist, who's a virtual person by phone, video chat, email. They're doing a lot of video chat right now to help our remote schools. And so they're great people to lean on. They're technical experts, know a lot about our curriculum, so they can help you. But also lean on, your students too, or other teachers. We've had people nominate select students as their teaching assistants to support others. And I'll talk too about some other leadership opportunities you can build in, like in a formalized way for your community as well. So really do all these different things to have that strengths-based approach and build that close-knit community to encourage them. And that way you can help to implement this pretty smoothly. So in any STEM program, right, it's also important that your students learn that basics of computer science and STEM concepts, but the most impactful piece of your programming would really be to build more than code. That's the key to engagement, right? They could be learning anything, but if they have that community, if they have that feeling that their voice matters, that they are a leader in the space and that, they're needed there, by having that strong peer group and peer network and community, that's how we can really emphasize this idea of sisterhood or community building. So in all of our Girls Who Code clubs, we help to do this by leveraging group building activities, as I mentioned, called sisterhood activities. It helps to make time for them to reflect and play and kind of grow together with those activities. So today I'll highlight 4 different ones that you could take back. And once again, the slide deck will be up so you can use it at a later time. It's all free on our curriculum, so feel free to just sign up for it. It takes like 10 minutes and then you can access everything. So it's pretty easy to do. So one is a sample active energizer. It's called a shakedown. I'm going to do a sample here in my living room. But basically for today, we won't do this all together. That's fine. But it's an active energizer. So don't underestimate the point of really moving around. So this is the shakedown. Many people do this. It's pretty common. But what you do is you shake down from 6 on each limb, basically. So it's like 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then your leg, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, blah, 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 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So by the end, it gets really funny because you're moving really quickly. We've actually done this in a remote setting with our staff, so it's pretty funny, but you could do it and kind of shake around together just to get the blood flowing. So that's one of them. Another one is lines and blobs. So this one's pretty easy to do too, but would probably need to be in person. So basically the students get into a blob or line up based on specific prompts. So if it's a blob prompt, that might be a sample like, oh, okay, whatever pet you like, get into your blob. And then the students might shout out cats, like who likes cats over here? Like who likes fish over here? Something like that. So you can mix around there. Or maybe you could say, okay, favorite music or favorite subject in school or anything else creative that you might like to come up with. For the line prompts, this could be, something creative too. But if you wanted to have them like line up silently based on their birthday, you can kind of see how they communicate with each other and then do that silently. One of my personal favorites, especially for assessing skills and pairing them up together, is having them line up by coding experience. And so by people who have the most coding experience in the front and then least in the back. And then once they line up, have the person all the way at the front share their experience, the one in the back share their experience, and then you can even what's called fold the line. So pair the people who have the most experience with the least experience, pair them up together, and that could be like their buddy throughout the time. So find those ways, those people in the front are becoming those leaders, the ones who need that more support can feel like they're engaged too because they're getting that extra help. So it's kind of different fun activities you could do. Come up with any types of creative prompts that you'd like, but this is just a sample of what our curriculum looks like, but in our online platform, it's detailed. We have lots of samples and different prompts for you to use. Another one is a sample communication builder activity. It's called One Word, where you get participants to get into small groups, and you'll give each group a theme, like maybe desserts or rocks or musicians. And then each participant within that group thinks about one word related to that theme. So if it's a dessert, maybe it's like cake, ice cream, whatever that might be. And then by the end, that group has to come up with one word that captures the theme. Then they share it out to the full classroom, and then the rest of the classroom has to try to guess what the theme was. So it's kind of funny. It's a way to build in the communication. And so you can do this as well. And we have more instructions too in the curriculum. Last one that I'll mention, this one is actually one of my favorites. It gets the students thinking really creatively, and it kind of gets them pitching and work on their public speaking skills too. It's called Pitch a Product. And so the full club kind of breaks up into different teams, and you have maybe random adjectives and then random nouns, and they pick an adjective and pick a random noun, put them together, and that's the name of their product, like glitter coffee or power potato or, bouncing pants, whatever it might be. That's something really weird. And then the team has 10 minutes to come up with an imaginary product that they'd sell and practice pitching it as a team. It gets really funny and gets their ideas flowing, especially as they're thinking about building a Girls Who Code project or other projects that they might do. So feel free to do this kind of sample activity in the beginning. Like even glitter coffee, it's like, do you feel like you want to be a unicorn? Do you love rainbows and glitter? Well, wake up with this, I thought about that in 10 seconds. So not exactly what it would sound like, but you can have them do a sample like that to really get their blood flowing and their brain juices going. So now that you can see sample on the language and activities to really build community and kind of more engagement with them as they build their peer group, I wanted to dive into the importance of diverse representation in STEM, right? We want them to be able to also be engaged by seeing themselves representative, as well as thinking about different role models to help them see themselves as those future leaders. And so when we think about coding in particular, I want you to picture a coder in your mind, right? So who might that be, right? So oftentimes when we think about a coder, it might be a stereotypical idea of like some guy in a hoodie, like in a basement somewhere, maybe in Silicon Valley, like drinking Mountain Dew or coffee. They haven't seen light in a while. So basically like the show Silicon Valley. And so when I even Googled coder or computer scientist, maybe you picture that guy or that guy or this one or this one or this one. And it kind of goes on, right? So it's kind of a similar idea of who that might be. Oftentimes a male, oftentimes a white male, who might be put into this position, right, with a hoodie on. And so how can we change that idea? Because coders can really look like anybody, be anything, and do anything. And so at Girls Who Code, we really strongly believe in the idea that you cannot be what you cannot see. And so that's why it's so important to have more representation of inspiring and diverse role models that reflect the experiences of your students, across all different aspects of our identities as well, including but not limited to, their discipline. Maybe it's in music or art or manufacturing or forestry or, fishing. And it could also be based on their ethnicity, gender, race, social class, religion, their ability, age, sexual orientation, and more. So find different types of people to really highlight when you're trying to promote this in your programming. And so this way, it doesn't only help your students see themselves reflected, but also can help them learn about other identities in a supportive and respectful way. If they've never maybe seen somebody who has had cerebral palsy before, or maybe never seen someone who, comes from a different social class or a different race or ethnicity, this is a great way for you to be able to expose our, young people to people who might not look like them outside of their community. And so in one case in particular, in a club in Idaho, and I'll talk about this club in a little bit too, it was in a rural community, and the facilitator, Sherry, had mentioned that in her club, which has boys and girls in it, they have, they're not often exposed to people who don't look like them, who are outside of their rural mountain community. And so she was able to showcase these Women in Tech spotlights to the students and really introduce ideas of difference and identity to her club in a safe and approachable way. So it's nice to be able to do that as they go through. Ooh, good point. Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Ooh, okay, a female coder with a female boss. Definitely. Bring in like all these different ideas too. I think as you're developing these different spotlights or different people you want to present, you can highlight yourself. You can highlight different people in the community. Bring people in. Maybe you have an uncle or an aunt or a cousin or whoever it might be to support. And so to give you a sense of a structure of how you can use it and what we do in our Girls Who Code clubs, we have our different Women in Tech spotlights where we highlight a variety of different backgrounds and a variety of sectors, all on what's our Girls Who Code platform called Girls Who Code HQ. So it looks like this, but it has more pieces to it. This is specifically for our Women in Tech portions. It's pretty user-friendly. And then facilitators can find all the support you need to successfully incorporate this into your club sessions. You first choose a sector, so what subject you want to work on. You find a female role model within that, read about them, watch a video about them, and then discuss how they use computer science in this career. So we found that this model of kind of reading, watching, and reflecting is really beneficial to introduce these role models. And so each Women in Tech Spotlight ends with a discussion question centered on key developmental concepts like bravery, resilience, creativity, and purpose. So for bravery, we discuss, how each woman pushes new boundaries and takes bold risks. For resilience, we think about the different challenges that every woman has, that woman had experienced in the technical world. For creativity, we discuss why that work was innovative or different than the status quo. And then for purpose, we think, every single person draws inspiration from their personal experience. And so how do our students make their work important and exciting for society and how it relates to their own purpose? And so I'll give you a quick sample. So this one is Mural. She's awesome. And she was featured on America's Got Talent. And she found a great way to combine dance and coding to create Illuminate, which was really cool. As you can see here, she incorporated lights and dance to create really beautiful light shows. And so she was previously a software engineer at Bloomberg and then just wanted to bring back in dance. So you can find different ways to really excite your students to get them to think about coding, STEM, and other programming in different ways. So now that you know how to build that inclusive environment and how to really promote different role models to help them see themselves as leaders and stay engaged, I want to give you some more sense of how to create your program to be as holistic as possible. So in terms of our overall educational philosophy at Girls Who Code, we like to see elements that you can adopt in your own community. The first pillar that we have is more than code, as I mentioned, where you're not just teaching them how to program, but teaching them also computational thinking, how to break down problems, how to think creatively, and how focus on character traits like bravery, resilience, and curiosity, right? The next piece we have is sisterhood. So research shows that having a supportive and a group to learn and grow with can really help that with that retention and engagement. So make sure that they feel supported through the community feel of your program, like our clubs, and show role models that are doing cool and inspiring things. And the last piece is real world relevance and impact. Once again, can't stress that enough. Education becomes that much more powerful when what we're learning is relevant to our lives and our interests. So we want girls to know that they can use computer science to change the world, and they can use these skills no matter what they want to be when they grow up. They don't have to choose one aspect of their identity and let the others go, right? They can grow their many passions and interests and combine those with their CS skills or other skills to make a difference. And so when implementing your own programming, see how you want to make these like 3 different connections to the activities you select, the community you create, and the connections you make with your students. So here's an example of how we implement this educational philosophy into our tutorial and our curriculum. So after their sisterhood activity and their Women in Tech Spotlight, each club then moves into activities related to their Girls Who Code project and then their self-guided coding tutorial. And so each tutorial, they first, learn a big idea of a kind of key concepts. They learn it. So they're kind of being brave as they're trying out new coding concepts. They explore it by growing their creativity as they experiment and check their understanding. Then they build it. So they connect it back to purpose, right? And so maybe they're starting to build their themes of the Girls Who Code project. Then they share it and get feedback from each other to help improve their creations, right? Forming that supportive network. And then they look at what's next to preview the content for the next session. So when going through these, we always encourage our girls to learn through building, and then they partner up and use each other as a resource to build community, and encourage girls to use and choose these tutorials based on things that they're interested in. So not just the level of difficulty, which we do have, beginner to advanced, but maybe they want to use Scratch to create a game, but maybe they want to use JavaScript to create an interactive magazine. So it depends on what they want to build. Lean into whatever they're interested in and go for that. That's how you keep them engaged. You can also help them feel more engaged and build essential leadership skills and responsibility by creating leadership opportunities within your program. And having it be not just kind of like figurehead leadership, but really give them tangible things that they're doing, right? And checking in with them, creating benchmarks for them to make them grow those leadership skills. So in Girls Who Code clubs, we like encourage people to have like 5 different sample roles. Here's just a sample. Not every club does this, but we have a technology officer. Maybe they're helping you out with routine maintenance of the computers and tablets and phones, just setting everything up. Maybe you have a coding coach. So maybe if they had experience before, maybe they're helping kind of like that teaching assistant to offer assistance to the beginner club members. Maybe you have a social media chair. Everyone needs one. They can kind of post about it, detail the club project across all stages, which is also helpful for reporting purposes, right? So as you're thinking about bringing it back to your principal or the other people in your organization, you can kind of document what that looks like. You can create a project lead, so assist facilitator with time and completion of the project. And then you can have a supplies monitor, right? So even just keeping track of the practical needs like school supplies and snacks and those types of things. So find out what works well for your students and then make space for them to be able to grow as these young learners. So we've been talking a lot today about the Girls Who Code project and how it can make the curriculum feel more real-world relevant and impactful to encourage the engagement there and have them have a voice in how they are thinking about their learning. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into what that looks like. So as I mentioned, the Girls Who Code project is a way for them to identify something that they're passionate about, and then learn coding skills to start building. So here's some samples. Maybe they're creating a website on environmentalism or a game on ending homelessness or hunger or something of that nature. So there's really cool things that people come up with, but definitely make it relevant to the community. They might do some sample activities in order to get there. So we have ones on, okay, how do I do research? How do I find a focus and really maybe, for example, here, brainstorm ideas by doing dot voting and selecting a project in that way. So we offer a lot of those types of things to help build that project, and we encourage you to build that into your program too. We have our Girls Who Code stand-up as well, and so we'll be able to discuss the importance of reflection, right? So a stand-up is a practice. Real software engineers use this too, to help keep their members up to date. So find that time to be able to reflect, get them to ask about what they accomplished, get feedback from each other, and really practice those public speaking skills. Great. So now the good stuff. How to access the free resources. I'll go through this pretty briefly so we can have time, about like 5 to 8 minutes or so for questions. So in terms of free resources, we have quite a bit. As I keep on mentioning, we have that clubs program. Once again, all completely free. We have over 120 plus hours of curriculum. It's super flexible, plug and play. You can use it in a variety of different ways. We're actually finding ways to adjust it. People have used it remotely before for virtual learning. So you could definitely do that if your schools are closed and do it online with students. We're also in the process of coming up with an adjusted training. So that way we can help you on like how to lead this virtually. So we're specifically creating training on that in the next week or two. We have a facilitator toolkit with logistics and support. We have our Clubs Fund mini grant of $300 per semester, your designated virtual club success specialist, alumni benefits, and more. So all you need to do, you just apply really quickly. It's girlswhocode.com/clubs. If you're starting it this spring, you can apply really quickly then. It takes like 10 minutes to apply, and then you get access to everything in a few days. So it's pretty easy to do, so you can poke around the curriculum. Our Clubs Fund benefits, just to give you a sense, you can get snacks, you could get robots, you could go on a field trip. One club bought a rug so they could do circle time. Others have done quite a few different things. They've gone on field trips, had guest speakers. So we give a lot of suggestions, but it's $300 per semester. You just have to have 3 or more students enrolled in the club. So I wanted just to introduce you to Sherry Shalene, who is in Valley County in Idaho. She's one of our club facilitators at the Donnelly Public Library. And she has 2 different clubs, one for 3rd to 5th and one for 6th to 12th. And she was really mentioning, she's right there, that's her head. And she has boys and girls in the club. And she said it's such a great way to really kind of introduce ideas of difference to the community, build a sense of kind of sisterhood and community amongst that. And it fill a need in the community that was really there. A daycare had closed right before school started, like a week before. And so she was able to start a club really quickly, a few days, get the curriculum, a couple days after that was the first day that she looked at Scratch, was the first meeting that they had. So definitely an opportunity for you to do that too. So how to get started. You create an account on Girls Who Code HQ, which is that platform for everything. You fill out the club's application, which takes about 15 minutes. You'll get an approval email within 5 to 10 business days. We've been trying to expedite it to like 1 to 3 days just to get people rolling. So you could use the remote resources if your schools have closed. Then you can review your resources. We'll email introduce you to your club success specialist, and then you're ready to go. Right now, I'll just quickly preview the first 2 so you could get started even today if you'd like. So you just register for HQ. It's super easy. Just say you want to start a club or volunteer for a club. After that, you'll be able to see the sample curriculum at the bottom, and then you just hit apply there, or apply here. So once you click that, you fill out the application. It's really short to do. And when you're doing that, just make sure that you list Idaho Out of School Network as your partner, because you're affiliated. And this way you could get additional benefits, like an additional $100 of clubs fund. You can get additional support from them as well as myself to really make sure you have everything you need to get started.
Whoop, whoop. Get that.
Exactly. And that'll be great because you'll have extra support. So here, basically, after you apply, you'll watch a super quick Launch Your Club webinar, which we're adjusting to really focus on also the virtual support and answer any questions you have. You'll recruit your members, enroll them on HQ so you can access the club's fund and those different pieces. And then you prepare for your first session. And of course, your club success specialist is there every step of the way, as well as myself, Idaho Out of School Network, to really make sure you're set up for success. A couple other pieces for you to keep in mind. Actually, before we do that, one other note is that if you're planning on doing it for this spring, you just have to apply before March 31st. So even just to access the curriculum, I suggest you just fill it out. That way you can do it anytime between now and June, to start it. If you're planning on doing it next year, like the fall or spring, or even like the summer maybe, you can fill out the application starting after April, because that's when the new year's academic year application will open up. So just keep that in mind. But you can even do like a mini club session now, and then like as a teaser, because we have samples of like shorter condensed versions, and then you could do a longer one later on too. So definitely fill it out if you get the chance. We have our Women in Tech lesson plans, which are pulled from our Women in Tech spotlights, but they're downloadable immediately, like today. We suggest you use Microsoft Firefox or Google Chrome for it, but you can download it immediately as well. We also have our books and digital media as well. So we have tons of best-selling books. We have a podcast called Brave Not Perfect Podcast. We do have events each year for the International Day of the Girl. So we have that as well, where the first year we dropped a digital visual album, which featured like Lizzo and a bunch of other really great folks too, to celebrate girls and women. And we also had the first ever digital march for things that girls cared about.
Hey, Emily, Mallory has a question about whether or not the clubs can only be run during the school year. Can they run during the summer?
Good question. So we usually suggest they run in the school year, but this year is actually the first year, so you're coming in a good time, that you can do it in the summer. So it depends on the timing. I would say that if you're going to do it sometime in June, I would suggest that you fill out the application now, so that way you could just have all the materials early. If you're planning on doing it maybe like late July or August, something like that, I would suggest you fill it out in April. That way you can access the next year's curriculum. However, if you are doing both, let's say, if you wanted to fill out the application for now for this spring and do like a mini club version, it's really easy to renew. It's much faster. All you need to do when you're renewing on HQ, there's a button that says renew my club. You click the button, you confirm that the details are the same, and then it's super easy for the next one. So that'll be nice and fast. The timelines currently are not on the website, but I can send some information afterwards as well. And I'll just make a note in the slide deck. But you can do that. I have a question from Mallory. Do the clubs last a month? It's a good question. It's really flexible. I would say for the 6th to 12th grade clubs, it could go anywhere from like 10 total sessions. So it could be like 5 weeks, twice a week, or it could be once a week for 10 weeks or whatever timing you want, for like an hour to 2 hours a session. It's quite varied in terms of time. So it depends on you. But it could also be year after year. So it could be a full semester, a full year, year after year. There's over 120 plus hours of curriculum. We've had clubs that's been with us since like their 6th grade, and now they're in like 10th, 11th grade. We add new curriculum each year as well. So there's always other things for them to do. So basically it just depends on the timing that you have. I would say if you have a different group of girls, that would be another club. So you could apply for another club. That way you could get an additional round of funding. Plus it's a new Girls Who Code project. It's a new group of girls. So I suggest that you do that. I think we have about 3 more minutes. So if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to add it into the chat. Thank you.
That's what I echo Anna. Awesome. I'm super excited for people to get started, and I've already thought of several people who need to see this.
Oh, perfect.
While watching it, I was like, they maybe didn't catch this webinar, but they certainly need to see it.
Yeah, and I'm
So we'll
happy
get it
to
out
chat with
again.
anyone. Yes, definitely. And I'm happy to chat with anyone. So my contact information is here. Usually the customer care team is really great, especially with like applications, kind of getting things out quickly. So go to clubs@girlswhocode.com and just send them an email. You can check out all the resources we have at girlswhocode.com or girlswhocode.com/clubs to just access everything that you like. But otherwise, my email is here as well. So if you want to talk through any pieces, definitely let me know. And then if you do apply for a club and get started, you'll be assigned to your club success specialists that are all sprinkled all throughout the country as well. But thank you so much again to both of you, Anna and Diana, about our partnership and our work with Idaho Out of School Network. We're really excited to kind of promote this a little bit more all across Idaho, which we've been excited to do. And I'm always here to help, so just let me know how I can. And I hope this was helpful to all of you as you really bring back these ideas to get that youth voice and leadership and engagement all across the different programs that you run, which I know that you're all probably doing a ton. So glad we could help in any way.
Well,
thank you so much.
Oh, good. Sorry, Anna. Go ahead.
I'm really impressed, and it feels very doable with the way you presented it, and your resources and support are really amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad it was helpful. And for us too, I think it can feel really like daunting at first, to think about coding or to go into it. And so we actually have a Girls Who Code club in my office. I was previously working more in the special education kind of and other nonprofit sector for myself. So it was quite a shift. And so for me, it's way less scary when they had a club in my office because I'm learning Scratch and Python myself. So definitely encourage everybody to continue to be the lifelong learners and be role models for our students.
Awesome. Is there any more questions for Emily? And if not, I just want to encourage everyone to please join us next week. We're going to continue basically kind of talking about this topic of youth voice and leadership and engagement. And you can register on our website, and that's also where you'll find the recording of this. If you want more information or can't quite remember, you can find it there, and that's idahooutoFschool.org. Idaho Out of School Network, my own website. And we'll get back with you. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to email me or Anna and Emily, and hopefully we'll get some clubs started.
Sounds great. Thank you so much to both of you. Talk to everyone soon.
Thanks, guys.